What if the most valuable sapphire in the Swiss Alps was never the real prize? On a freezing night at the Grand Hotel Edelweiss, a wealthy man is found dead beside a priceless blue sapphire. 7 suspects are trapped inside, and every single one is hiding a secret. But when Hercule Poirot discovers a hidden passage, a blood-stained knife, and a voice that shouldn't be possible, he realizes the murderer has been performing a lie from the very beginning. Its tall windows glowed warmly against the frozen darkness, while beyond them, the Alps rose beneath a silver moon, their peaks sharp and silent against the winter sky. Inside, however, there was warmth, music, perfume, champagne, and laughter, the elegant sounds of wealthy people determined to forget that the mountains outside were cold enough to kill. It was the perfect stage for tragedy. Every guest had a role: the grieving widow, the charming nephew, the loyal secretary, the mysterious foreign count, the beautiful singer, the nervous doctor's daughter, and, among them, one actor had already chosen the most dangerous role of all, the innocent. At 10 minutes past 10, the orchestra was playing a slow waltz in the ballroom when the first scream came. It was followed by another, then silence. For 3 seconds, nobody moved. The champagne glasses remained suspended in elegant hands. A woman near the fireplace gasped. Somewhere in the corridor, hurried footsteps struck the polished parquet, and a door slammed open. Then everyone began to run. The sound of their footsteps echoed through the hotel. At the far end of the building stood the Winter Garden, a beautiful glass-walled room overlooking the valley. French doors opened onto a terrace buried beneath fresh snow, and inside stood marble fountains, palms, white roses, and a magnificent crystal chandelier. It was there that Sir Reginald Ashcombe was found. He lay beside the fountain. His evening coat was open. One hand rested against the marble floor. The other was clenched tightly around a small velvet box. The box was empty. Beneath his body, partly covered by snow that had blown through the open doors, was a large blue sapphire. There was a dark stain upon his white shirt. Inspector Karl Keller of the Swiss police arrived first. He looked at the body, then at the sapphire, then at the 7 people gathered near the entrance. "Nobody leaves this room." No one answered. Lady Eleanor Ashcombe, the dead man's wife, stood beside the fireplace. Her midnight blue silk gown shimmered beneath the chandelier. Her gloved hand covered her mouth, and tears appeared upon her cheeks. Jonathan Ashcombe, Sir Reginald's nephew, stood near the window. He was pale, very pale. Arthur Bellamy, Sir Reginald's secretary, was already explaining himself. "I was in my office. Dr. Felix Hartmann was examining the body." Madame Celeste Moreau, the French singer, stood perfectly still. Count Stefan Volkov leaned upon his silver-topped cane, and Clara Weiss, daughter of the hotel's owner, looked as though she might faint. 7 people, 7 performances, and 1 murderer. Then a small voice came from the doorway. "Inspector Keller." Keller turned. A little man stood there in an immaculate evening suit. His black shoes were spotless. His hair was carefully arranged. His magnificent moustache appeared untouched by the chaos surrounding him. Hercule Poirot had arrived. "Who is this?" Keller demanded. "A detective," Poirot replied. "You were invited?" "Not exactly." Poirot looked beyond him toward the body. His green eyes narrowed. "Ah." He stepped into the room. "The stage is magnificent." Keller stared at him. "This is a crime scene." "Precisely." Poirot walked slowly across the marble floor. The room smelled of roses, furniture wax, cold air, and expensive perfume. A fire burned weakly in the adjoining drawing room, and the faint scent of cigar smoke lingered in the curtains. Somewhere in the hotel, a grandfather clock began to chime 11. Poirot stopped beside the body. He did not touch it. He simply looked. At the wound, at the hand, at the velvet box, at the sapphire. Then he looked at the people. "Observe, mon ami," he said quietly. "The crime scene is not merely a place where something happened." Keller frowned. "What is it then?" "A stage." Poirot pointed toward the guests. "And these are the actors." Lady Eleanor began to cry harder. Poirot watched her. The handkerchief appeared. She pressed it carefully against her eyes. Her shoulders trembled. Her lips quivered. It was a very convincing performance. Poirot's expression did not change. The handkerchief remained dry. "The mask slips," he murmured. Keller heard him. "What?" "Nothing." Poirot returned his attention to the body. "Tell me, Inspector, what do you know?" "Sir Reginald was killed by a narrow blade. We believe he was stabbed here." Poirot looked toward the open doors. Snow had blown across the floor. How much snow fell? "About 4 centimeters." "Since when?" "Approximately 9 o'clock." Poirot nodded. "And the sapphire?" "We believe it belonged to Sir Reginald." "Believe? He was a collector." "Ah." Poirot examined the velvet box from a distance. "Was it found open?" "Yes." "Was the sapphire found inside?" "No." "Then why is it beneath the body?" Keller shrugged. "It may have fallen." "Perhaps." Poirot looked at him. "But perhaps the sapphire was placed there." "Why?" "To tell us a story." Keller folded his arms. "What story?" Poirot smiled. "The story of a jewel theft." The inspector stared at him. "You think the sapphire is a distraction?" "I think it is a prop." Poirot looked around the room. "Someone wishes us to believe that Sir Reginald was murdered for this jewel." He paused. "But the theatre of crime has many stories. Only one is true." Lady Eleanor suddenly spoke. "My husband was murdered." Poirot turned toward her. "Yes, madame." "Then find his killer." "I intend to." Her eyes met his. For one brief second, Poirot saw something. Not grief, fear, but not fear of the murderer. Fear of what the investigation might reveal. Poirot noticed. "The careful observer, and you are becoming a careful observer, mon ami, would have noticed it too." Then Jonathan spoke. "I didn't kill him." Poirot turned. "I did not accuse you." "I know." "Then why defend yourself?" Jonathan opened his mouth. No answer came. Poirot smiled faintly. "Interesting." Dr. Hartmann stood. "Death occurred recently, perhaps within the last half hour." "Your medical opinion?" "Yes." Poirot studied him. "How convenient." The doctor stiffened. "What do you mean?" "Nothing." Poirot moved toward the terrace. He examined the snow. There were footprints, several sets. But one trail interested him. A small shoe print, a woman's. It led from the terrace toward the winter garden. Poirot looked back. Every face had changed. Lady Eleanor had stopped crying. Jonathan was watching the floor. Bellamy was gripping his notebook. Madame Moreau had become very still. Count Volkov's hand tightened around his cane. Clara Weiss looked terrified, and Dr. Hartmann suddenly appeared angry. Poirot smiled. "Ah." Keller came beside him. "What have you found?" "Not what I expected." "What is that?" Poirot pointed to the footprints. "Someone entered this room after the snow began." Keller nodded. "Yes, yet nobody admits seeing anyone. I'll question them." "No." Poirot turned. "We shall question them." "Now?" "Of course." Poirot adjusted his sleeve. "The first performance is always the most interesting." Keller looked around the room. "Who do you think did it?" Poirot's green eyes gleamed. "I think every person here is performing." "That isn't an answer. It is the beginning of one." Poirot walked toward the drawing room. First, the widow. Lady Eleanor followed reluctantly, then the nephew. Jonathan swallowed, then the secretary. Bellamy closed his notebook. The doctor. Hartmann's jaw tightened. The singer. Madame Moreau lifted her chin. The count. Volkov smiled. And finally, Poirot looked at Clara, the young lady who saw more than she wishes to tell us. Clara went white. Poirot opened the drawing-room door. Warm air flowed toward them. The smell of coffee, wood smoke, and expensive perfume filled the corridor. The grandfather clock finished striking 11. Poirot entered. "Mesdames et messieurs," he said, "the investigation begins." He turned toward the suspects. "Watch yourselves." His moustache lifted slightly with his smile, because in this theater, every actor eventually forgets the lines. The stage was set. The players had assembled. Let the drama begin. Chapter 2. Enter the players. Morning arrived at the Grand Hotel Edelweiss beneath a sky of pale silver. Snow covered the terraces and the steep Alpine roofs, while smoke rose lazily from the chimneys into the cold air. Inside, the hotel was warm and elegant, but the atmosphere had changed. The laughter of the previous evening had vanished, replaced by whispered conversations, cautious glances, and doors closing softly. The murder had transformed the hotel. What had been a luxurious winter retreat was now a stage of suspicion, and Hercule Poirot was ready to direct the next scene. He sat in the blue drawing room beside a small fire, his shoes resting precisely beneath his chair, his hands folded over his walking stick. The smell of strong continental coffee filled the room, mixed with furniture wax, cigar smoke, and the faint perfume of roses arranged in a crystal vase. Inspector Keller stood beside the fireplace. "You have already questioned them once." "Yes. And now you want to question them again." Poirot's green eyes gleamed. "Mais oui. Why? Because yesterday they were frightened, and today they have had the night to rehearse." Keller stared at him. Poirot smiled. "That makes all the difference." The first actor entered, Lady Eleanor Ashcombe. She wore a black wool dress beneath a long silk jacket, and her pale face looked exhausted. Her grief appeared convincing. Her eyes were slightly swollen, her hair was imperfectly arranged, and she carried a small handkerchief in one gloved hand. Poirot gestured toward the chair. "Please, madame." She sat. "You understand," she began, "that I want the murderer found. Naturally. I loved my husband." Poirot studied her. "Did you?" Lady Eleanor looked offended. "Of course. Then why did you wish to leave him?" The question struck her like a slap. "I never said I wished to leave him." "No." Poirot leaned forward. "But your face did." For several seconds she remained silent. Then she looked toward the window. "Reginald and I had not been happy." "How long?" "Years." "Did he know?" "He knew everything." "That is not an answer." She sighed. "He knew I wanted freedom." "From him?" "From the life." Poirot nodded. "And yesterday evening?" "He was angry." "About what?" "I don't know." "That is your performance, madame." Her eyes narrowed. "What performance?" "The grieving widow who knows nothing." Her fingers tightened around the handkerchief. Poirot noticed. "Tell me about the sapphire." "I know nothing about it." "Sir Reginald's collection. He was obsessed with jewels." "Did you ever dislike that obsession?" "Sometimes." "Did you know the blue winter sapphire was valuable?" "Everyone knew." Poirot smiled. "Ah, everyone." He made a note. "That will be all." Lady Eleanor rose. At the door she stopped. "Mr. Poirot." "Yes?" "I did not kill my husband." Poirot looked at her. "I believe you." She stared at him. "Why?" "Because you are trying too hard to convince me." Her face changed. Then she left. Poirot watched the door close. "Did you see it?" he asked Keller. "What?" "The mask." Keller shook his head. It slipped. The second actor entered. Jonathan Ashcombe. He looked worse than the previous evening. His jacket was wrinkled, his collar open, and dark circles showed beneath his eyes. He sat heavily in the chair. "I haven't slept." "Why?" "My uncle." "Because you loved him." Jonathan hesitated. "Because I hated him." Keller raised his eyebrows. Poirot remained calm. At last, Jonathan looked confused. "What?" An honest answer. Jonathan stared at the fire. "Sir Reginald was cruel. To you. To everyone. Yet you inherit his fortune." Jonathan flinched. "There it is." "What?" "Your fear." "I am not afraid of the money." "No. You are afraid of what people will think." Jonathan looked up. "They'll say I killed him." "Did you?" "No." "Did you argue with him yesterday?" "Yes." "When?" "After dinner." "What about?" "My debts." Poirot leaned back. "How much?" "Too much." "Did your uncle threaten to disinherit you?" Jonathan nodded. "He said I would receive nothing." "That is important." "Why?" "Because a man who stands to inherit can be a murderer." Jonathan looked frightened. "But I didn't." Poirot studied him. "Perhaps." Jonathan rose. Poirot stopped him. "One more question." "Yes?" "At 10 o'clock. Where were you?" "In my room." "Alone?" "Yes." "Can anyone confirm this?" "No." "Then your alibi is not an alibi." Jonathan swallowed. "It is the truth." Poirot smiled. "Truth is not always useful, mon ami. Evidence is." Jonathan left. The third actor was Arthur Bellamy. He entered carrying his notebook. Poirot almost smiled. "Ah, monsieur." Bellamy sat. "I have prepared a complete account of my movements, naturally. I thought it might assist the investigation, of course." Bellamy opened the notebook. "I was in my office from 9:45 until 10:20. "Doing what?" "Correspondence." "Anyone see you?" "No." "Then how do you know the exact times?" Bellamy paused. "I looked at the clock." "Repeatedly?" "Yes." Poirot tilted his head. "Interesting." Bellamy shifted. "Why?" "Because most innocent people do not record their movements while committing no crime. I wanted to be helpful. Helpfulness can be a very convincing mask." Bellamy closed the notebook. "You suspect me. I suspect everyone." "Why?" "Because everyone is behaving strangely." Poirot pointed toward the notebook. "May I see it?" Bellamy hesitated, then handed it over. Poirot turned several pages. Every movement had been carefully recorded. At 9:45, at 9:50, at 10, at 10:15, at 10:20. Poirot smiled. "This performance is rehearsed." Bellamy stiffened. "Are you accusing me?" "No." Poirot returned the notebook. "Not yet." Bellamy stood. At the door, Poirot called after him. "Mr. Bellamy." He turned. "When did you first hear about the Sapphire?" "Last night." "Interesting." Poirot's voice remained gentle. "Very interesting." Bellamy left. Keller looked at him. "You caught something?" "Perhaps." "What?" Poirot touched his moustache thoughtfully. He answered too quickly. The fourth scene belonged to Dr. Felix Hartmann. The doctor entered wearing a dark suit beneath a rough tweed coat. His hands were steady. Too steady. "You examined the body?" "Yes." "Tell me exactly what you found." "Single stab wound." "Depth?" "Approximately 5 centimeters." "Direction?" "Upward and inward." Poirot nodded. "You are certain?" "Yes." "Time of death?" "Between 10 and 10:30. "Could it have been earlier?" "No." "Could it have been later?" "No." Poirot looked at him. "That is very precise. I am a doctor." "Naturally." The doctor stood. "I have nothing more to say." Poirot smiled. "Everyone has something more to say." Hartmann left. The fifth actor was Madame Celeste Moreau. She entered in a pale silk gown. carrying the scent of expensive French perfume with her. She was composed, elegant, and almost completely without visible grief. Poirot studied her. "You knew Sir Reginald well?" "Yes." "How?" "He was a patron." "Only a patron?" She looked at him. "No." "Your lover?" Silence. "Once. Did he promise to marry you?" Her expression hardened. "Who told you?" Poirot smiled. "Theatre. What does that mean?" "Every actor leaves traces." She removed a glove. On her finger was a ring. Poirot's eyes sharpened. "His?" She covered it immediately. "Yes." "When did he give it to you?" "Yes." 3 years ago. And yesterday. We argued. Why? He refused to keep his promise. Did you threaten him? No. Did you wish him dead? Her eyes filled with anger. I wished him to suffer. Poirot nodded. That is different. Is it? Very. She looked at him for a long moment. Then she whispered, "You are dangerous, Monsieur Poirot." He smiled. "Only to bad performances." The 6th actor was Count Stefan Volkov. He entered wearing an expensive black suit, polished shoes, and a silver-topped cane. "You wish to know where I was?" "Yes." "On the terrace." "In the snow?" "Yes." "Smoking?" "Yes." Poirot glanced at his shoes. They were perfectly dry. No snow, no moisture, nothing. "You spent some time outside?" "Yes." "How long?" 20 minutes. "Then the snow should have marked your shoes." Volkov smiled. "Perhaps I walked beneath the awning. There is no awning on the terrace." The smile disappeared. Poirot leaned back. Ah, the Count had missed his cue. "I was not on the terrace." "Where were you?" "Alone." "That is not an answer." Volkov looked toward the window. "I was meeting someone." "Who?" He said nothing. Poirot nodded. "We shall return to that scene later." The final actor was Clara Weiss. She entered nervously. Unlike the others, she did not sit elegantly. She sat on the edge of the chair. "You are frightened?" "Yes." "Of the murderer?" She nodded. "Or of what you know?" Her eyes widened. Poirot waited. Clara finally whispered, "I saw someone." "Who?" "A woman." "When?" "Last night." "Where?" "Near the Winter Garden." "At what time?" "Just after 10. "Why didn't you tell the police?" "I was afraid." "Of whom?" She looked toward the door. "Sir Reginald." Poirot frowned. "Sir Reginald was dead." "I know." "Then why fear him?" Clara lowered her voice. "Because before he died, I heard him arguing." "With whom?" "A woman." "What did she say?" Clara swallowed. "She said, 'You promised me.'" Poirot became completely still. "And Sir Reginald?" He said, "You knew the arrangement." Keller exchanged a glance with Poirot. Poirot slowly rose. "Thank you, mademoiselle." Clara stood. As she reached the door, Poirot spoke again. "One final question." She turned. "Did you see her face?" "No." "Did you recognize her voice?" Clara hesitated. Then she whispered, "Yes." Poirot's eyes narrowed. "Whose?" Clara looked terrified. "Lady Eleanor's." The door closed. Poirot turned toward Inspector Keller. For several seconds neither man spoke. Then Poirot smiled. "The players have entered." Keller stared at him. "But who performed truth?" Poirot looked toward the snow-covered mountains. "And who performed lies?" Outside, the wind moved across the terrace. Inside, somewhere behind a closed door, a clock ticked steadily. The actors had taken their marks, but the performance had only just begun. Chapter 3. The First Act. The snow continued through the afternoon, softening the world beyond the windows until the Grand Hotel Edelweiss seemed suspended between earth and sky. Inside, the warmth of the drawing rooms offered little comfort. Guests spoke in whispers, waiters moved with unusual caution, and every opening door caused heads to turn. Hercule Poirot sat alone in the winter garden. The crime scene had been cleaned, but the room still seemed to remember what had happened. The marble floor had been polished, the roses replaced, and the curtains drawn against the snow. Yet Poirot could almost imagine Sir Reginald Ashcombe lying beside the fountain again, his hand gripping the empty velvet box. "Ah," Poirot murmured. "The stage remembers." Inspector Keller entered. "You were right about the terrace. Naturally, Count Volkov lied." Poirot smiled. "Yes, he was meeting Madame Moreau." "Ah," Keller frowned. "You already knew?" "I suspected." "How?" Poirot arranged 3 crystal glasses on the table until they stood perfectly symmetrical. "The Count's shoes." "The shoes?" "Dry shoes tell a very interesting story." Keller sighed. "You notice everything." "Not everything." Poirot looked toward the door. "Only the things that do not belong." The door opened. Madame Moreau entered. Her face was pale, but she remained composed. "I assume the Count has told you." "Eventually." She sat. Poirot studied her. "You met him on the terrace?" "Yes." "Why?" "Because I wanted him to help me leave Switzerland." "Why?" "Sir Reginald had threatened me." "With what?" She looked down. "Letters." Poirot waited. "He had letters proving our affair. He intended to give them to my husband." "You are married?" "No." "Then why threaten you?" "He knew I had taken something." "The sapphire." Madame Moreau's silence was confirmation. "I stole it 3 weeks ago." Keller stared. Poirot remained calm. "Why?" "To escape." "You needed money." "Yes." "Did you return it?" She hesitated. "I tried." "What does that mean?" "I put it back." "Where?" "In Sir Reginald's safe." Poirot's eyes narrowed. "Then how did it come beneath his body?" "I don't know." The singer's voice trembled. For the first time, Poirot saw genuine fear, not performance, not theater. Fear. "You were afraid last night," he said. "Yes." "Why?" "Because when I saw Sir Reginald, he was already dead." Poirot leaned forward. "You saw him?" She nodded. "At what time?" "Just after 10. "Where?" "Near the winter garden." "What did you do?" "I ran." "Why?" "Because I thought I would be blamed." Poirot studied her face. "Did you see anyone?" She closed her eyes. "A man." "Who?" "I don't know." "Could you describe him?" "He was wearing a dark suit." Poirot smiled. "Half the men in this hotel wear dark suits." "He carried a notebook." Keller looked at Poirot. Poirot said nothing. Madame Moreau left. The little grey cells began to assemble the pieces. A woman had argued with Sir Reginald. A woman had entered the winter garden. A man had been seen carrying a notebook. Bellamy had an alibi. A sapphire had been planted. And everyone had a reason to lie. But motives were not enough. Poirot knew that. A murder could have 10 motives and only 1 murderer. He stood. "Come, Inspector." "Where?" "To the office of Mr. Bellamy." Bellamy's office was small and immaculate. Books lined the shelves. Letters were arranged in neat piles. A leather writing case sat beside the desk. The smell of ink, polished wood, and cigar smoke filled the room. Poirot opened drawers one by one. Keller watched. "What are you looking for?" "The backstage." "Meaning?" "The things the actors do not display on stage." Poirot opened the writing case. Inside were letters, receipts, a hotel ledger, and a photograph. He lifted it. Sir Reginald stood beside Bellamy. They were smiling. On the back was a date. 5 years earlier. Keller frowned. "Friends?" "No." Poirot turned the photograph over again. "Employees do not usually keep photographs of their employers like this." He opened another drawer. Nothing. Then he noticed a small burn mark along the edge of the desk. Poirot touched it. A fireplace. Keller looked puzzled. What? Someone burned a letter here. Can you tell what it was? No. Poirot smiled. But someone was afraid of its contents. He stood. Ask yourself, Inspector, what kind of person destroys evidence before the murder? Keller thought. The murderer. Perhaps. Poirot looked toward the door. Or someone who knew the murder was coming. They returned to the drawing room. Lady Eleanor was standing near the window. Poirot approached her. Madam! She turned. I have nothing more to say. That is unfortunate. Why? Because I have more questions. She looked exhausted. Ask. You knew Madame Moreau had been Sir Reginald's lover? Yes. You knew about the letters? Yes. You knew he intended to expose her? Yes. And you were in the winter garden? Lady Eleanor froze. Who told you? Poirot smiled. Your reaction. She lowered her eyes. I went there to speak with him. At 10? Yes. Did you kill him? No. Did you see him alive? Yes. Poirot waited. She whispered. He was arguing with someone. Who? I couldn't see. What did you hear? Lady Eleanor's eyes filled with tears. Sir Reginald said, You will not destroy me. Poirot's expression sharpened. And the other person? He said. She stopped. He. Poirot leaned closer. You said the other person was a man. I don't know. Your first answer was, he. She looked terrified. Poirot stepped back. Why? I was confused. Perhaps. She walked away. Keller approached. You think she knows the murderer? Yes. Does she know who? Poirot touched his moustache. I think she knows more than she wishes to admit. The afternoon light faded. The hotel lamps came on, one by one. Poirot returned to the winter garden. He stood before the marble fountain. The stage was empty, but the performance continued in the minds of the living. He remembered another case, years before, in which a murderer had relied upon the expectations of others. The criminal had understood that people wanted emotions to look a certain way. Grief should involve tears. Shock should involve silence. Fear should involve trembling. So the murderer had practiced all three. The performance had been brilliant, but there had been one mistake. When the victim's name was mentioned, the murderer had looked toward the door. Not because of grief, because the murderer feared someone might enter. That was the psychology Poirot trusted. The face could lie. The body was less cooperative. The human being was an imperfect actor. Poirot knew this because people rarely lied about facts alone. They lied about themselves. They wanted to be seen as generous when they were greedy, loyal when they were resentful, calm when they were terrified, innocent when they were guilty. Human beings constructed masks because the truth was often uncomfortable. Sometimes a mask was created for society, sometimes for another person, and sometimes for oneself. The most dangerous liar was not the person who knew he was lying. It was the person who had repeated the lie so often that he had begun to believe it. Poirot looked at the empty fountain. Ask yourself, mon ami, he said softly, what role does this person need to play? That was the question. Not simply who had the motive, not simply who possessed the opportunity, but who desperately needed to be believed. The answer would lead to the murderer. A sound came from behind him. Poirot turned. Clara Weiss stood in the doorway. You wanted to see me? Yes. She entered cautiously. Poirot pointed toward the floor. Tell me again what you saw. A woman. And now? Clara hesitated. I was wrong. Poirot became still. Wrong? It wasn't a woman. What changed your mind? I remembered the voice. Poirot stepped closer. Whose voice? Clara whispered. Arthur Bellamy's. The room seemed suddenly colder. Poirot's eyes gleamed. Ah, the first mask had cracked. More would follow. The first act concluded. Some masks had cracked. Chapter 4. Rehearsed Lines. By the following morning, the Grand Hotel Edelweiss had become a place of carefully controlled silence. Snow pressed against the tall windows, turning the mountains into pale shadows, while inside the hotel, the fires burned warmly, and the scent of strong coffee drifted through the corridors. Yet beneath the polished mahogany, crystal chandeliers, and expensive perfume, tension moved like a second wind. Everyone was waiting for Hercule Poirot's next scene. Poirot himself sat in the blue drawing room, studying the statements collected from the previous day. Inspector Keller stood beside him, with a folder beneath his arm. "You believe Bellamy is the murderer?" Poirot did not answer immediately. He arranged the papers into a precise stack. "I believe, Inspector, that Mr. Bellamy is performing innocence. That sounds like the same thing." "No." Poirot looked up. "A performance is not proof of guilt." He tapped the folder. "But a performance tells us where to look." At 10 o'clock, Poirot summoned the entire cast. Lady Eleanor arrived first, wearing a dark wool dress and pearl earrings. Jonathan followed, nervous and pale. Dr. Hartman came carrying his medical bag, while Madame Moreau entered wrapped in a silver-grey coat. Count Volkov arrived last among the guests, his polished shoes making almost no sound upon the parquet floor. Bellamy entered carrying his notebook. Poirot smiled. "Ah, monsieur, you brought your script." Bellamy's expression tightened. "It is simply my notes." "Of course." Poirot gestured toward the chairs. "Please, let us rehearse." Nobody laughed. Poirot stood before them. "Last night, Mademoiselle Clara Weiss told us she heard a man's voice in the winter garden." Clara sat beside the fireplace. Bellamy looked at her, only for a second, but Poirot saw it. Fear. Then Bellamy looked away. "She was mistaken," Bellamy said. Poirot smiled. "Perhaps." He turned to Clara. "Tell us exactly what you heard." Clara swallowed. "A man's voice." "What did he say?" "He said, 'You cannot do this.'" Bellamy shifted. Poirot noticed. "And Sir Reginald?" He said, "You have left me no choice." Lady Eleanor suddenly looked at the floor. Poirot turned toward her. "Madame?" "I don't know anything." "That is becoming a very popular line." Her face flushed. Poirot walked slowly around the room. "Observe, mon ami, when people lie together, their stories begin to resemble one another." He stopped beside Jonathan. "Yesterday, you said you were in your room at 10. "Yes." "Today?" "The same." "Good." Poirot smiled. "Then your performance is consistent." Jonathan frowned. "Is that bad?" "No." Poirot turned toward Bellamy. "But consistency is not truth." Bellamy's fingers tightened around his notebook. Poirot held out his hand. "Your notes." Bellamy hesitated, then passed them over. Poirot opened the notebook. "At 10:15, you wrote that you heard the orchestra stop." "Yes, but the orchestra stopped at approximately 10:12. Bellamy looked startled. "Then I made a mistake." "Perhaps." Poirot turned another page. "At 10:17, you wrote that you heard a woman scream." "Yes." Yet Clara testified that she screamed only after discovering the body. "I heard someone shout." "Not a scream?" Bellamy paused. "A shout." Poirot smiled. "Your script changes." Inspector Keller stepped forward. "Why would you write down details that were wrong?" Bellamy became defensive. "Because I was frightened." "Then why were your notes so precise?" Bellamy said nothing. Poirot closed the notebook. Rehearsed lines began to falter. Bellamy stood. "This is ridiculous." "Is it?" "You have no evidence." Poirot's expression remained calm. "Evidence is coming." Bellamy looked toward the door. Poirot noticed. The instinct to escape. Another small tell. "Sit down, monsieur." Bellamy sat. Poirot turned to Dr. Hartman. You gave the time of death as between 10 and 10:30. Yes. Are you certain? I am a doctor. That is not an answer. The doctor frowned. Poirot continued. Could the murder have occurred before 10? No. Why? The condition of the body. And after 10:30? Impossible. Poirot looked at Keller. Interesting. The inspector understood. Why? Because Mr. Bellamy's notes place him in his office during precisely that period. Bellamy interrupted. I told you that. Yes, and several hotel employees heard me there. Did they? Bellamy froze. Poirot smiled. Name one. Bellamy opened his mouth. No answer came. Ah. Poirot walked toward him. Your alibi has no witnesses. I was alone. Exactly. Bellamy's face had begun to redden. Poirot's voice softened. Truth does not require rehearsal. Bellamy looked away. The tension in the room increased. Someone would break character soon. Poirot turned toward Madame Moreau. You told us yesterday that you stole the sapphire. Yes? Where is it? I don't know. You returned it to Sir Reginald's safe. Yes. Are you certain? Yes. Poirot placed a small evidence envelope on the table. Inside was a fragment of blue velvet. Madame Moreau stared at it. What is that? From Sir Reginald's safe. Her face changed. I don't understand. The safe had been opened. When? On the night of the murder. She shook her head. I did not open it. Poirot looked toward Bellamy. Neither spoke. Who had access? Keller asked. Bellamy answered too quickly. Sir Reginald. Anyone else? Bellamy hesitated. The hotel owner. And you. I had administrative access. Poirot smiled. There. Bellamy looked at him. What? You finally told us something useful. The secretary stood abruptly. You are twisting everything I say. Because everything you say is carefully twisted. Bellamy's eyes flashed with anger. Poirot's smile disappeared. Ah. The room became silent. Anger. Not fear. Not grief. Anger. The mask was beginning to strain. Poirot turned toward Lady Eleanor. Madame, you told us that Sir Reginald was arguing with someone. Yes. Was it Bellamy? She hesitated. I couldn't see. Could you hear? Yes. Did you recognize the voice? Another pause. Yes. Whose? She looked at Bellamy. He stared back at her. Lady Eleanor's lips parted, but no words came. Poirot waited. Whose voice? Finally she whispered, Arthur's. Bellamy rose. She's lying. Lady Eleanor looked at him. Why would I? Because you hated Sir Reginald. That does not make me a murderer. No, Poirot said. But it makes you capable of lying. Poirot stepped between them. Enough. He looked at the entire group. Everyone here has a script. He pointed toward Lady Eleanor, grieving wife, toward Jonathan, poor nephew, toward Madame Moreau, abandoned lover, toward Dr. Hartman, professional physician, toward Count Volkov, mysterious gentleman, then Bellamy, loyal secretary, finally Clara, frightened witness. Poirot's eyes moved slowly from face to face, but the scripts are failing. The fire crackled. A champagne glass somewhere in the adjoining dining room broke. Everyone jumped. Poirot did not. He simply smiled. Watch this performance carefully. He walked toward the window. Yesterday, everyone wanted to know who killed Sir Reginald. He turned. Today, I want to know why everyone is afraid of the truth. Nobody answered. Then Poirot noticed something on Bellamy's sleeve. A tiny blue thread. He stepped closer. May I? Bellamy instinctively pulled his arm away. Too late. Poirot had seen it. Blue silk. Bellamy stared. It could come from anywhere. Perhaps. Poirot removed a small magnifying glass. The thread matches the lining of the velvet curtains in the winter garden. Bellamy's face went pale. Keller stepped forward. You were there. No. Then how did the thread get onto your sleeve? I don't know. Poirot smiled sadly. Bravo. Bellamy glared at him. Poirot's voice became almost gentle, but unconvincing. The secretary suddenly turned toward the door. Keller blocked him. Nobody leaves. Bellamy stopped. Poirot returned to his chair. We are finished for today. Keller stared at him. Finished? Yes. But you have him. Poirot shook his head. No. He looked at Bellamy. I have only the beginning of him. Outside, the snow began falling harder. Inside, the actors remained silent. Their rehearsed lines had begun to collapse. The script was failing, and somewhere beneath the masks, the truth was preparing to speak. Chapter 5. The mask slips night settled over the Grand Hotel Edelweiss with unusual force. Snow struck the tall windows in restless waves. The wind whistled around the stone walls, and the warm drawing room seemed almost unreal against the icy darkness outside. In the blue drawing room, the fire crackled beneath a marble mantel, while the smell of wood smoke, coffee, and expensive perfume lingered in the heavy air. Hercule Poirot sat alone. On the table before him lay 3 objects: a piece of blue silk, a page torn from Arthur Bellamy's notebook, and a small velvet fibre recovered from the winter garden. Poirot studied them without touching them. Inspector Keller entered. Bellamy? Still in his room. Under guard? Yes. And the others? Lady Eleanor is upstairs. Jonathan is in the library. Madame Moreau has asked to leave tomorrow morning. Dr. Hartmann is with the hotel owner. Poirot nodded. The actors are becoming restless. Keller looked at the objects. You think Bellamy killed Sir Reginald? I think he knows more than he says. That's the same thing. No, Inspector. Poirot's expression became serious. A murderer lies to hide his crime. An innocent person may lie to hide something else. Keller frowned. So what is Bellamy hiding? Poirot looked toward the fire. That is tonight's scene. He stood. Bring him to me. Bellamy entered 20 minutes later. His confidence had disappeared. The secretary, who had previously carried his notebook like a shield, now walked with his hands at his sides. His face was pale, and there were dark shadows beneath his eyes. Poirot gestured toward a chair. Sit, monsieur. Bellamy sat. You wanted to see me? Yes. You have accused me publicly? No. Poirot leaned forward. I have observed you publicly. Bellamy's jaw tightened. There is a difference. Indeed. Poirot placed the blue thread on the table. This was found on your sleeve. Bellamy stared at it. I have already explained that. You said it came from nowhere. I said I didn't know. Ah. Poirot smiled. Then let us begin again. Bellamy said nothing. Where were you when Sir Reginald died? In my office. Alone. Yes. You heard the orchestra stop? Yes. You heard the scream? Yes. You did not leave your office? No. Poirot watched his face. Then how did you know the winter garden doors were open? Bellamy blinked. I didn't. You told Inspector Keller that snow had entered the room. Bellamy froze. Poirot continued. You described the snow on the marble floor before Inspector Keller had told you about it. Silence. The fire crackled. Bellamy slowly looked away. Poirot leaned back. The mask slips. I heard someone mention it. Who? I don't remember. Convenient. Bellamy stood. I am tired of this. Poirot did not move. You may sit down. I will not be treated like a criminal. Poirot's voice remained calm. Then stop performing like one. Bellamy stared at him. For the first time, genuine anger appeared in his face. You think you understand me? No. Poirot's green eyes sharpened. I think you are frightened. Bellamy's anger faltered. Of what? Of being exposed. Bellamy looked toward the door. Poirot saw the movement. You have spent years building a respectable identity. I have done nothing wrong. Then why are you afraid? No answer. Poirot opened the notebook page. You prepared an alibi before anyone requested one. He placed it on the table. You lied about the time. Another page. You knew details about the crime scene before the police released them. Another. And you had access to Sir Reginald's safe. Bellamy stared at the papers. These prove nothing. Perhaps. Poirot folded his hands. But psychology is not evidence in a courtroom. He paused. It is how we find the evidence. Bellamy suddenly laughed. You detectives believe everyone has a secret. Everyone does. And you think every secret leads to murder? No. Poirot's voice softened. Some secrets lead to shame. Bellamy stopped laughing. Poirot saw it. There. A reaction. Not fear. Pain. Ah, Poirot whispered. Bellamy looked away. You know. Not yet. But you suspect. Yes. Poirot stood. Tell me about your debts. Bellamy's face went white. What debts? Those you owed to Sir Reginald. I owed him nothing. Poirot reached into his pocket and removed a folded document. Then perhaps this is someone else's handwriting. Bellamy read it. It was a list of payments, large sums, repeated transfers. His name appeared at the bottom. Bellamy sat down. I can explain. Of course. Poirot smiled faintly. Everyone can explain. The secretary's shoulders collapsed. I borrowed money. How much? At first, very little. And later? More. Why? Bellamy stared at the fire. I invested. Badly. Yes. Sir Reginald discovered it. Yes. And threatened to expose you. Bellamy nodded. Poirot waited. Did he threaten you yesterday? Yes. Did you meet him in the winter garden? Bellamy's eyes filled with tears. I went there. Keller, standing near the door, stiffened. Poirot remained perfectly still. What happened? We argued. About the money? Yes. Did he threaten you? Yes. What did you do? Bellamy closed his eyes. I pushed him. Poirot's expression changed. Did he fall? Yes. Was he dead? I don't know. Poirot waited. Bellamy covered his face. I panicked. You moved the body. No. You moved him. Bellamy nodded. I thought he was dead. And then? I took the sapphire. Why? I thought it would look like robbery. Poirot's eyes narrowed. But you said you knew nothing about the sapphire. I lied. Yes. Bellamy began to tremble. The real stone was worth enough to save me. Where is it? I don't know. Poirot stared at him. Bellamy looked up. I swear. Did you place the imitation beneath him? Bellamy shook his head. No. Poirot became very still. Then who did? Bellamy's voice dropped. Someone else was there. Who? I don't know. Man or woman? A woman. Poirot exchanged a glance with Keller. Lady Eleanor. I couldn't see. Then why did you say woman? I heard her. What did she say? Bellamy closed his eyes. She said, You promised me. Poirot's expression sharpened. The same words Clara had heard, the same words Lady Eleanor had refused to explain. But Bellamy's confession created another puzzle. If Bellamy had pushed Sir Reginald, moved the body, and stolen the sapphire, who had placed the imitation? Who had entered the scene before him? And why? Poirot approached the secretary. One more question. Bellamy looked up. When you found Sir Reginald, was he alive? Bellamy hesitated. Yes. Poirot's eyes narrowed. What? He was alive. How long? Perhaps a minute. Then why did you leave him? Bellamy's face crumpled. Because he said something. What? He laughed. Poirot waited. He looked at me and said, You will never know who betrayed you. The room became silent. Poirot stepped back. Ah. Bellamy was no longer performing. He was remembering. And that memory frightened him more than the police. Who betrayed you? Poirot asked. I don't know. Then perhaps Sir Reginald knew something you did not. Bellamy wiped his eyes. I heard the woman afterward. What did she say? She said, "It is finished." Poirot looked toward the window. The snow continued to fall. For the first time, he understood that the murder was not one simple act. It was a chain of fear, a chain of secrets, a chain of people protecting themselves. Bellamy had attacked Sir Reginald. Someone else had entered. Someone else had perhaps finished the crime. And someone had planted the false sapphire. Poirot returned to the table. "The mask has fallen, monsieur." Bellamy looked at him. "Will you arrest me?" "Not yet." "Why?" "Because I do not believe you are the whole performance." Bellamy stared. Poirot gathered the papers. "You have confessed to attacking Sir Reginald." "Yes." "You have admitted stealing the sapphire." "Yes." "But you have not confessed to murder." Bellamy shook his head. "I did not kill him." Poirot nodded. "I believe you." Keller looked surprised. "You believe him?" Poirot turned. "His grief is genuine." Then he looked back at Bellamy. "But your guilt is also genuine." Bellamy lowered his head. Two truths, one man, one crime, and another actor still hidden behind the curtain. Poirot walked toward the door. "Inspector, we must speak with Lady Eleanor again." Keller followed. Behind them, Bellamy remained alone beside the fire. The elegant secretary was gone. The loyal mask had disappeared. And what remained was a frightened, compromised man who had finally revealed the truth he could no longer carry. But his confession had not ended the mystery. It had deepened it. Outside, the wind howled against the hotel. Inside, somewhere upstairs, a door quietly opened, then closed. Poirot stopped in the corridor. He turned his head. "Did you hear that, mon ami?" Keller listened. "Nothing." Poirot smiled. "The tension rises." He looked toward the dark staircase. Someone will break character soon. The mask had fallen. The true face had emerged, but it was not yet the face of the murderer. Chapter 6. The Hidden Witness. The storm grew stronger after midnight. Snow struck the windows of the Grand Hotel Edelweiss, and the wind moved through the corridors with a low, mournful sound. Most of the guests had retired, but Hercule Poirot was still awake. He sat in the blue drawing room with Inspector Keller. "Bellamy has confessed to enough," Keller said. "We can arrest him, not for murder. He admitted attacking Sir Reginald." "Yes, but attacking a man is not necessarily killing him." Keller frowned. "Then who delivered the fatal blow?" Poirot looked toward the fire. "That is the question." A soft sound came from the corridor. Poirot immediately turned. Someone was walking. The footsteps stopped outside the door. Then came a knock. Keller reached for his revolver. "Enter." The door opened. Clara Weiss stood there. She was trembling. "Monsieur Poirot," she whispered, "I must tell you something." Poirot gestured toward a chair. "Sit down, mademoiselle." She did so. "I lied yesterday." Poirot's expression remained calm. "About what?" "I said I saw Mr. Bellamy." "Yes, I did see him." "Then what did you lie about?" Clara looked toward the window. "I said he was alone." Poirot leaned forward. "He was not?" "No." "Who was with him?" She swallowed. "Lady Eleanor." The inspector exchanged a glance with Poirot. "Are you certain?" "I saw them arguing." "What did you hear?" Clara closed her eyes. Lady Eleanor said, "You promised you would protect me." Poirot's eyes narrowed. "And Sir Reginald?" He wasn't speaking. Why? Because Sir Reginald was already dead. Silence filled the room. Keller stood. "You said Bellamy found him alive." Clara shook her head. "He was mistaken." Poirot's face became thoughtful. "Perhaps." Clara continued. "I saw Lady Eleanor kneeling beside him." "Did she have a weapon?" "No." "Blood on her hands?" "I couldn't see." "What did she do?" Clara whispered. She took something from his pocket. Poirot's voice softened. What? I don't know. Did you see the sapphire? No. Poirot stood and walked to the window. The puzzle was changing again. Bellamy had lied. Lady Eleanor had lied. Clara had lied. And every lie seemed connected to something hidden. Why did you remain silent? Poirot asked. Clara lowered her head. Because Lady Eleanor saw me. Poirot turned. She saw you? Clara nodded. She looked directly at me and said, nothing. That frightened Poirot more than words would have. A murderer might threaten a witness. An innocent person might ask for help. But silence could mean something else. Recognition, confidence, or a secret shared between two people. Poirot returned to the table. One final question. Clara looked up. Why tell me now? Because I saw Lady Eleanor leave her room tonight. When? About 10 minutes ago. Poirot's eyes sharpened. Where did she go? Toward the winter garden. Poirot immediately stood. Keller. They hurried through the corridor. The hotel was silent. They reached the winter garden. The doors were open. Cold air swept across the floor. Lady Eleanor stood beside the marble fountain. She turned slowly. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then Poirot smiled. Madame. Her face was pale. I knew you would come. Poirot stopped. Why? She looked toward the fountain. Because you are finally asking the right questions. Keller stepped forward. Where is the sapphire? Lady Eleanor looked at him. I don't have it. Poirot's gaze remained fixed upon her. No. He glanced at the floor. But you know where it is. Her eyes widened. Poirot smiled. Ah, the hidden witness had spoken, and the next secret was waiting beneath the snow. Chapter 7. Beneath the snow. Lady Eleanor stood beside the marble fountain, her face pale beneath the soft glow of the chandelier. Beyond the glass walls, the storm continued to rage. But inside the winter garden, there was a strange stillness. Inspector Keller stepped forward. Where is the sapphire? Lady Eleanor looked at him. I told you, I don't have it. Poirot raised one hand. Inspector. Keller stopped. Poirot approached the widow slowly. Madam, you have been lying since the moment my investigation began. Her expression hardened. So have others. Indeed. Poirot glanced toward the fountain. But your lies are different. How? They protect someone. Lady Eleanor said nothing. Poirot continued. You were here last night. You saw Sir Reginald after he was attacked. You took something from his pocket. Her eyes flickered. What did you take? A letter. Poirot smiled faintly. Ah. Keller looked surprised. A letter? Lady Eleanor nodded. It was addressed to me. Where is it? She reached inside her coat and produced a folded envelope. Poirot did not take it immediately. What did it contain? A confession. Whose? Reginald's. She handed him the letter. Poirot opened it carefully. His eyes moved across the page. Sir Reginald had written about money, betrayal, and a secret arrangement involving someone at the hotel, but one name had been deliberately omitted. Poirot looked up. Why did you hide this? Because I was afraid. Of the murderer? No. She looked toward the dark terrace. Of the truth. Poirot folded the letter. And the sapphire. Lady Eleanor shook her head. I never took it. Who did? I don't know. Keller stepped toward her. But you must know something. Lady Eleanor closed her eyes. I saw someone leave. Who? A man. Poirot's attention sharpened. Bellamy? No. Jonathan? No. Dr. Hartman? She hesitated. Poirot noticed. You recognize him. I saw his coat. Where? Near the terrace. Poirot moved toward the open doors. Fresh snow covered the ground. Show me. Lady Eleanor pointed. There. A faint trail of footprints disappeared beneath the falling snow. Poirot crouched. He examined them carefully. One set was large, another was smaller, but beside the footprints was something else, a narrow groove in the snow. Something had been dragged. Poirot followed the mark toward the terrace wall. There, beneath a layer of fresh snow, he found a small leather case. Keller brushed the snow away. Inside was the sapphire. The blue winter sapphire glittered beneath the lantern light. Everyone stared. Poirot did not touch it. Interesting. Keller looked relieved. We found it. No. Poirot shook his head. We found what someone wanted us to find. What do you mean? Poirot pointed toward the case. The murderer did not hide the sapphire. He looked back at Lady Eleanor. Someone placed it here recently, she whispered. Why? Poirot's expression became grave. To make us believe the mystery is solved. A sound came from behind them. They turned. Dr. Hartmann stood in the doorway. His face was unreadable. Poirot smiled. Doctor. Hartmann looked at the sapphire, then at Poirot. You found it. Yes. The doctor said nothing. Poirot studied his shoes. There was fresh snow on them. You have been outside. Hartmann glanced downward. Yes. Why? I couldn't sleep. Poirot smiled. Of course. Then he noticed something else. A tiny blue fiber clung to the doctor's coat, the same color as the velvet lining of the sapphire case. Poirot's eyes narrowed. Dr. Hartmann, he said quietly, I think you and I must have another conversation. The doctor did not answer. Behind him, the storm continued, and somewhere in the darkness, another secret waited to be uncovered. Chapter 8. The Doctor's Secret. Dr. Felix Hartmann remained in the doorway of the winter garden, the fresh snow on his shoes and the tiny blue fiber clinging to his coat. Inspector Keller moved toward him. You have been outside. The doctor looked at Poirot. Yes. Why? Hartmann removed his gloves slowly. I wanted some air. Poirot smiled. At midnight, during a snowstorm, I could not sleep. Of course. Poirot stepped closer. And where did you walk? The terrace. Keller looked toward the sapphire case. Did you place that there? No. Poirot watched his face carefully. The answer had come too quickly. Then you know who did. Hartmann said nothing. Poirot turned to Lady Eleanor. Madame, please wait with Inspector Keller. Then he gestured toward the drawing room. Doctor, you and I will speak privately. Hartmann followed. Inside, the fire had burned low. Poirot closed the door. You examined Sir Reginald's body? Yes. You gave us the time of death? Yes. You said he died between 10 and 10:30. That was my professional opinion. Poirot nodded. And yet you were wrong. Hartmann's expression changed. I was not. Sir Reginald was alive when Bellamy left him. The doctor stared at him. Who told you that? Bellamy. He could be lying. Certainly. Poirot paused. But you were nervous when I mentioned it. Hartmann walked toward the window. You are making assumptions. No. Poirot's voice was quiet. I am watching. The doctor turned. You think I killed him. I think you knew he was alive after Bellamy left. Silence. Poirot continued. Perhaps you arrived afterward. Hartmann looked down. I did. Poirot's eyes sharpened. What happened? I found him near the fountain. Alive? Yes. Then why did you not save him? The doctor closed his eyes. Because he was already beyond saving. Poirot studied him. That is not what you said in your medical report. Hartmann said nothing. Poirot approached. You altered the time of death. I was protecting someone. Whom? The doctor looked toward the door. Lady Eleanor. Poirot remained still. Why? Because she was there. Was she responsible for his death? No. Then why protect her? Hartmann hesitated. Because Sir Reginald had threatened her. With what? A letter. Poirot nodded. The confession. Hartman looked surprised. You have it. Yes. And you know? I know enough. The doctor sank into a chair. Sir Reginald had arranged everything. He intended to destroy Eleanor's reputation. He knew she planned to leave him. That explains motive. It does not explain murder. Exactly. Poirot sat opposite him. What happened after you found Sir Reginald? Hartman looked toward the fire. He was barely conscious. He tried to speak. What did he say? He said one word. What word? Volkov. Poirot's expression changed. The Count? Hartman nodded. He said the Count's name. Poirot stood immediately. Where is Count Volkov? In his room, I believe. Poirot opened the door. Keller was waiting. The doctor has told us something important. What? Sir Reginald named Count Volkov before he died. Keller's face hardened. Then we arrest him. Poirot shook his head. Not yet. Why? Because the doctor has told us only part of the truth. Hartman looked at Poirot. The detective's eyes were fixed upon him. You said Sir Reginald was beyond saving. Yes. But you did not tell us that he spoke. The doctor's face went pale. Poirot smiled sadly. Another mask. Suddenly, footsteps sounded in the corridor. They turned. Count Volkov stood at the far end. He was holding something in his hand. A small, blood-stained knife. Keller reached for his weapon. Don't move! Volkov smiled. But Poirot noticed something strange. The knife was completely clean, except for the blood. Too clean. Inspector, Poirot said quietly. Keller looked at him. Do not arrest him. Why? Poirot stared at the knife. Because that is not the murder weapon. Volkov's smile vanished. And Poirot understood that the next act would finally reveal why the sapphire had been planted in the snow. Chapter 9. The False Weapon. The winter garden had fallen silent. Count Stefan Volkov stood at the end of the corridor, the blood-stained knife hanging loosely from his hand. Inspector Keller remained tense, one hand near his weapon, while Dr. Hartman watched Poirot with an expression of growing unease. Poirot, however, appeared perfectly calm. Put the knife on the table, Count. Volkov obeyed. Keller stared at the blade. You were carrying a bloody knife. I was. Why? Volkov smiled bitterly. Because someone wanted me to be found with it. Poirot's eyes brightened. At last. Keller frowned. At last what? Someone has finally admitted the obvious. Poirot approached the knife without touching it. The blood is fresh. Keller nodded. Yes, but there is no blood on the handle. He looked at Volkov. If you had used this knife to kill Sir Reginald, there would almost certainly be traces on your hand or the handle. Volkov said nothing. Poirot continued. And there is another problem. He pointed toward the blade. The blood is on one side only. Keller examined it. So? It was applied. Applied? Yes. Poirot took out his magnifying glass. The murderer wanted this knife to look dangerous. But a genuine murder weapon tells a different story. He looked at Volkov. Where did you find it? In my room. When? 10 minutes ago. Was it there before? No. Then someone entered your room. Volkov nodded. I believe so. Poirot smiled. Now we are getting somewhere. Lady Eleanor entered with Clara behind her. She stopped when she saw the knife. What happened? Poirot turned. Madame, your husband mentioned Count Volkov before his death. Lady Eleanor's face changed. That is impossible. Why? Because Reginald hated him. Precisely. Poirot watched her carefully. Hatred can be informative. Volkov stepped forward. I did not kill Ashcombe. Poirot nodded. I believe you. Keller looked surprised. Then why did Sir Reginald say his name? Poirot looked toward the fire. Because perhaps he was not naming his murderer. Silence. Perhaps, Poirot continued, he was naming the person who betrayed him. Volkov's expression hardened. I had business with him. What kind? Financial. Again money. Poirot sighed. In every murder, people say money is the motive. Sometimes it is. Sometimes money is merely the curtain hiding something else. He turned toward Dr. Hartman. You told us Sir Reginald was beyond saving. The doctor nodded. Yes, but he spoke. Briefly. And you heard his final word. Volkov. Poirot smiled. Yet you did not tell us. I was protecting Lady Eleanor. Yes. Poirot walked slowly across the room. Everyone is protecting someone. He stopped beside Clara. And you, mademoiselle? Clara looked frightened. I don't know. Poirot softened his voice. Think carefully. She looked at the knife, then at Lady Eleanor, then whispered, I saw someone carrying it. Keller stepped closer. Who? Clara swallowed. Arthur Bellamy. Lady Eleanor gasped. Poirot closed his eyes for a moment. Of course. Keller turned toward the corridor. But Bellamy is under guard. Poirot nodded. Then we must ask how the knife reached the Count's room. They hurried upstairs. Bellamy's room was empty. The guard stood outside, confused. He was there 5 minutes ago. Keller's face darkened. Where did he go? The guard shook his head. Poirot looked at the open window. Fresh snow had blown across the floor. A rope hung outside. Poirot smiled. Not a very elegant escape. Keller rushed toward the window, but Poirot stopped him. No. Why? Because Bellamy wants us to believe he escaped. Poirot examined the rope. It has not been used. Keller stared. Then where is he? Poirot looked toward the adjoining wall. Not outside. He walked to the wardrobe. Slowly, he opened it. Nothing. Then he noticed a narrow panel behind the shelves. He pressed it. The panel moved. A hidden passage appeared. Keller stared. This hotel has secret corridors. Poirot smiled. Apparently, from somewhere in the darkness came a faint sound. A door closing. Poirot stepped into the passage. Come, Inspector. They followed the corridor until it opened behind the winter garden. Someone had been using the hidden passage. On the floor lay a single object, Bellamy's notebook. Poirot picked it up. The final page had been torn out. But beneath the missing page was a single handwritten sentence. The sapphire was never the treasure. Poirot's eyes narrowed. The real mystery, he whispered, has finally begun. Behind them, the hidden door slowly swung shut, and somewhere in the darkness, footsteps disappeared into the snow. Chapter 10. The secret behind the sapphire. The hidden passage was narrow, cold, and almost completely dark. Hercule Poirot moved carefully behind Inspector Keller, one hand resting lightly against the stone wall. Somewhere ahead, footsteps echoed through the tunnel, then disappeared. Bellamy? Keller whispered. Poirot shook his head. Perhaps, they continued. The passage ended behind a wooden door near the old service wing of the hotel. Keller pushed it open. Nobody was there. Only a small table stood against the wall. Upon it lay a folded sheet of paper. Poirot picked it up. It contained 3 words. Trust no one. Keller sighed. Another message. Yes. And what does it mean? Poirot smiled. It means precisely what the writer wants us to think it means. He folded the paper. Which is why we must ask a different question. What question? Who benefits from our confusion? Before Keller could answer, a noise came from the corridor. They turned. Clara Weiss stood there. She looked terrified. Mademoiselle? She approached slowly. I know where Bellamy went. Poirot's expression sharpened. Tell me. He went downstairs. Where? The old wine cellar. Keller immediately moved toward the stairs. Poirot stopped him. Wait. Why? Because Clara knows more than she has told us. Clara looked down. Poirot softened his voice. You are not in trouble. She nodded. Bellamy was not alone. Who was with him? I couldn't see. Then how do you know? I heard 2 voices. Poirot waited. One was Bellamy's. And the other? Clara hesitated, then whispered, "Sir Reginald's." Keller stared at her. "That's impossible." "Yes," Poirot said quietly. "If Sir Reginald was dead." Clara nodded. "But I heard his voice." Poirot's mind moved quickly. A hidden passage, a missing notebook page, a false weapon, a sapphire deliberately planted. And now a voice that should not exist. "Take us to the cellar," Poirot said. They descended the stone stairs. The air became colder. At the bottom stood rows of dusty wine racks. A single lantern burned in the distance. Beside it was Arthur Bellamy. He was holding a small wooden box. Keller raised his weapon. "Bellamy?" The secretary turned. "I didn't kill him." Poirot approached. "What is in the box?" Bellamy looked at it. The truth. He opened it. Inside was an old collection of letters. Poirot examined the first, Sir Reginald's handwriting. The second was addressed to Lady Eleanor. The third contained a name. Poirot read it. His face became serious. "Jonathan." Keller frowned. "What about him?" Bellamy looked toward the stairs. Sir Reginald discovered that Jonathan was not his nephew. Silence. Poirot slowly understood. Jonathan had been connected to Sir Reginald through a secret that went back years. His real father? Bellamy nodded. "Volkov." Keller stared. "The Count." "Yes." Poirot looked at the letters again. The sapphire was not merely a jewel. It had been used as security in an old financial arrangement between Sir Reginald and Volkov. The murder was not about theft. It was about the destruction of evidence. Poirot closed the box. "Where is Jonathan?" Bellamy's face changed. "He knows." A sound came from above. A door slammed. Poirot looked toward the stairs. Too late. They rushed upward. Jonathan stood at the end of the corridor. He was holding another envelope. Lady Eleanor was behind him. For a moment, nobody moved. Then Jonathan spoke. "My uncle knew everything." Poirot nodded. "Yes. He knew who my father was." "Yes. And he intended to tell everyone." Jonathan's voice broke. "So I confronted him." Poirot studied him. "Did you kill him?" Jonathan looked at Lady Eleanor. She closed her eyes. "No." Poirot waited. Jonathan whispered, "But I was there." Another piece fell into place. The murderer was still hidden, but the sapphire had never been the real treasure. It was the key to a secret buried for years, and now that secret was finally beginning to surface.